Good afternoon, and thank you for attending today. My name is Juanita Riley. I am the Contracts and Procurement Manager for the Texas Lottery Commission. This is the pre-proposal conference for the Annual Financial Audit Services RFP number 362-2023-0004. On the panel today, we have Tammy Williams. She's our Contract Specialist. Eric Williams, he's our Hub Coordinator. Kaya Wolf, he's Assistant General Counsel. And Stacy Schumann, she's our Financial Accounting and Reporting Manager. If you have not already done so, please scan the QR code with a mobile device or use the link that was provided to sign in. A copy of the sign-in sheet will be posted on the ESPD, the Electronic States Business Daily, and the Texas Lottery's website prior to the next business day. This is for sharing of information between prime vendors and subcontractors. Communication will be primarily through the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. Emails will also be used for the RFP. We strongly advise you to check with your IT department to ensure that our emails will not be filtered away. Some businesses block out the phrase lottery, so you won't be able to receive emails from the Texas Lottery Commission if the filter does not allow it to come through. This conference is being recorded. If you have any questions, please submit your questions in the Q&A feature throughout the conference, and we will answer in the order received during the question and answer sessions at the end of each part. Our contract specialist, Tammy, will be monitoring the Q&As. We will review the recording after the conference and restate the questions and answers in the Q&A document, which will be released in accordance with the scheduled events. We will give you our best responses to your questions today. However, any questions that we cannot answer today will be answered in writing and will be included in the Q&A document. Please note that the written Q&A document is our final answer. Following this conference, if you think of additional questions, you have an opportunity to submit these in writing. These are your opportunities to ask questions, and we encourage you to do so regarding the requirements of the RFP. If you're unsure of language written in the RFP or need further clarification, this is your chance to receive the information you need. After proposals are received, it is then the Texas Lottery's time to ask questions and/or seek clarification if needed. Please note that any oral communication that would alter or amend the RFP as written is not binding. Any and all changes or modification to the RFP will be made in writing and posted on the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. You are encouraged to check these websites throughout this process and once more before submitting a proposal. Please note that there may be several RFPs posted on the TLC's website at one time, so be sure that you're viewing the correct RFP for updates. This RFP is open to any and all vendors who perform the services. To submit a proposal, you do not have to be registered on the CMBL, which is the Centralized Master Bidders List, be Hub certified, nor is there any approved vendor lists. We will now briefly review the RFP by parts. While we may discuss only certain sections or provision of the RFP during this conference, all sections and provision of the RFP are important, and you should read and understand the entire RFP before submitting your proposal. You'll have an opportunity after each part to ask general questions. We'll begin with Part 1, General Information. Section 1.4, Schedule Events. This section includes critical dates for this procurement. If there are any changes to these dates up to the deadline for proposals, an amendment will be posted on the ESPD and the Texas Lottery's website. In Section 1.7, because we are state agencies, proposals are subject to the Public Information Act, also known as the Open Records Act. During the procurement process, we will not release any information contained in your proposal. However, after a contract is awarded, your entire proposal is subject to this act and is considered public information. If there's any information in your proposal that is listed confidential and exempt from disclosure under the Texas Public Information Act, you must mark it as confidential. Examples of confidential information may be financial information or information that you considered trade secret or proprietary. It is important that you mark every applicable page and/or section that you consider confidential, and if possible, mark which exceptions of the Texas Public Information Act it falls under. The Public Information Act is located under Texas Government Code Chapter 552. Also, you cannot mark your entire proposal confidential. Once on the Office of the Attorney General's website is the Public Information Handbook, which lists all the exceptions. If you have information that you consider confidential, please respond to section 1.7 and list the information, including a brief commentary or justification, in addition to marking individual sections and/or pages. Tammy, are there any questions for part 1?
Hi, Juanita. There are no questions for part 1.
All right, thank you. Moving on to part 2, the proposal process. Section 2.1, I'm the sole point of contact for the RFP. All questions should be directed to me, including any hub questions. Section 2.4, questions shall be submitted via email by the deadline in the scheduled events. Questions submitted after the deadline in the scheduled events will not be answered. Responses will be posted on the TLC and the ESBD's website on or before the date listed in the scheduled events. Section 2.5, proposals shall be submitted in the format prescribed in this section. Proposers have the option to submit proposals either hard copy or electronically. Proposals are due no later than the deadline established in the scheduled events. Late proposals will not be considered and no exceptions will be made. Section 2.5.1, hand overnight delivery submission. Printed proposals may be delivered to the address provided in section 2.1. The Texas Lottery has moved to 1801 North Congress Avenue, the George H.W. Bush State Office Building, which is a secure building, and all visitors must sign in at the front desk in the lobby of the main building, not the drawing studio or the claims center. If you're hand delivering a proposal, please allow adequate time to check in and for the Texas Lottery staff to retrieve your proposal timely prior to the submission time listed in the scheduled event. If you submit a hard copy, you need to submit one signed original and one copy of your proposal. The original proposal should be clearly marked as original and shall be bound in a 3-ring binder. The evidence of financial soundness should consist of one original and one copy. The hub subcontracting plan should consist of one signed original and one copy. The signed original cost proposal should be contained in a separate sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal. If you submit an electronic copy under section 2.5.2, electronic delivery submission, electronic responses shall be sent via email to procurement@lottery.state.tx.us. The subject line on the email shall contain the RP name and number along with the proposer's name. Please submit one signed original proposal, one copy of evidence of financial soundness, one signed original cost proposal, and one signed original hub subcontracting plan in separate PDFs. Each PDF file attachment should be clearly named. Ensure that your proposal contains responses to all sections and parts of the RFP, and be sure your proposal number corresponds with that of the RFP. You may provide a blanket acknowledgement and acceptance for parts 1, 2, and 3 unless a section requires a specific detailed answer. Parts 4 and 6 require a section-by-section response. So that means for 4.1, we're looking for a 4.1 in your response that corresponds to the RFP. For financial soundness, for hand or overnight delivery, submit one original and one copy. This can be in a separate binder or folder. As for electronic delivery, please submit one copy. For part 5, for hand or overnight delivery, complete and submit one signed original and one copy of the HSP. This can be in a separate binder or folder. As for electronic deliveries, please submit one signed original. For hand and overnight delivery for the cost proposal should be in a separate sealed attachment to the original proposal containing one signed original. As for electronic delivery, please submit one signed original. If proposers feel a section does not provide a detailed response, then it's acceptable to state that you will agree and will comply. Section 2.5.7, the proposer's commitment, attachment A, and the background information certification, attachment D1, must be signed by an officer or agent of proposer with the authority to contractually bind the proposer, and the signed original attachment must be included in the original proposal. In section 2.5.10, in addition to the printed proposal, you're required to submit a copy of the entire proposal, excluding the cost proposal, on a USB drive in a searchable and unprotected PDF file. In section 2.5.11, please note copyright proposals are unacceptable and may be rejected. Section 2.6. This section covers the format and contents for which your proposal must be organized. which includes the letter of transmittal, executive summary, either a blanket acknowledgments of Part 1, 2, and 3, or a section-by-section response to 1, 2, and 3, section-by-section response for Parts 4 and 6, evidence of financial soundness, hubs of contracting plan, seal cost proposal attached to the original proposal only if submitted in a printed version, or one separate PDF if submitting electronically. Attachment A, the proposer's commitment, and Attachment D1, background information certification. Section 2.7, letter of transmittal. This letter must state that the proposal is valid for 180 days. Also include an overview of why your company is most qualified and include a statement accepting the terms and conditions in Part 3 and or any exceptions to such. Section 2.8, executive summary, should be a full and concise summary and not exceed 5 pages. Section 2.10, proposer's cost proposal. Cost proposal must be in its format included in Attachment H. If submitted in a hard copy, the cost proposal needs to be in a separate sealed envelope as an attachment to the original proposal. If submitted electronically, it needs to be in a separate PDF file. We only need the one signed original. Disclosure of costs in the body of the written proposal is cause for disqualification. The sealed envelope or the PDF file should only contain the cost proposal. Do not include any marketing materials or other information in your cost proposal. The cost proposal is not open until after the proposal is scored on its technical merit. Therefore, any additional material that are included in the cost proposal will not be evaluated. Section 211, multiple proposals. Proposers may submit only one proposal and one cost proposal. If a proposer submits more than one proposal, all proposals from that proposer may be rejected. Section 212. Any RFP changes, modification, or cancellations will be posted on the TLC and the ESBD's website. Section 215, proposal evaluation. The scoring matrix is attachment G and will be used for evaluation of proposals in response to this RFP. Please note that there are two pass-fail categories, the HSP analysis and the financial analysis. Your proposal essentially goes through 4 phases once it's submitted. The first phase is the initial assessment for compliance and completeness. The second phase, it is reviewed for financial analysis and HSP analysis. The third phase, it is reviewed and evaluated for its technical merit. And then the final phase, the cost proposal is open and reviewed. If at any given time your proposal is disqualified, you'll receive a notice stating such. Tammy, are there any questions on Part 2?
There are no questions for Part 2.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to Part 3, the contractual terms and condition. This part describes the terms and conditions which apply to the procurement process and which will become part of the contract executed pursuant to this RFP. Please read over this entire RFP document to ensure that you fully understand and will comply with all provisions. Any exceptions to the RFP should be clearly stated in the letter of transmittal, providing specific and detailed reasons for each exceptions, along with suggested alternative language. The contract resulting from the RFP will incorporate the RFP, any amendments, the questions and responses, the contractor's proposal, and cost proposal. Please note a performance bond is required under the RFP Section 3.35 and is required under the State Lottery Act. Therefore, we cannot accept alternatives. Under Section 3.56.1, the contractor will be required to take the Texas Lottery Cybersecurity Training Program and sign the Information Security Agreement. In addition, Section 3.56.2, Cloud Computing, and Section 3.56.3, Data Protection, are recently new laws that have passed. Tammy, are there any questions on Part 3?
There are no questions for Part 3.
Thank you. Part 4, required information. Section 4.1 through 4.4. Although these sections seem brief in the RFP, these sections require proposers to gather, compile, and submit a great deal of detailed documentation. Please read these sections in depth and provide all the information in your section-by-section response. So for a 4.1 in the RFP, we want to see a 4.1 in your proposal. Section 4.5, conflict of interest. In this section, you're asked to disclose an actual, potential, and or perceived conflict of interest. Please review this section and make any disclosures. Section 4.6, financial soundness. Texas Lottery Commission does a thorough financial analysis of all proposals. Please provide the information requested under this section. If you feel the information is confidential, please mark it as such. This is a pass-fail category on the scoring matrix, so it is critical that you provide the requested information. Section 4.7, Background Investigation. TLC reserves the right to conduct an in-depth background investigation on the apparent successful proposer. Section 4.7.2. A background investigation may be conducted on a contractually defined vendor principles, meaning those who will be directly involved in selling or leasing the goods or performing the services subject to this RFP or resulting in a contract. This includes partners, shareholders, officers, and directors who are directly involved. Section 4.7.3. Background investigation may be conducted on vendor employees who meet one or more of the criteria under this section. This contract requires a background investigation of employees on site at the Texas Lottery Commission. Background investigation will include fingerprinting. The apparent successful proposer may be required to complete all forms, including Attachment E, E1, E2, E3, and E4 of the RFP by the prescribed time after the written announcement of the apparent successful proposer by the Texas Lottery. If you feel that the information you're providing in Attachment E is confidential, please mark it as such. As mentioned before, we ask that all proposers complete and submit Attachment D1 with this proposal. This is a certification that your company would not be denied a sales agent license under Texas Government Code 466.155, which is Attachment D in the RFP. Section 4.8, Disclosure of Interest Parties. If requested, a successful proposal will be required to fill out a 1295 form with the Texas Ethics Commission. This is for contracts that are over $1 million and if you're not a publicly traded company. Tammy, are there any questions for parts 4?
Juanita, there are no questions at this time.
Okay, moving on to part 5. At this time, I'll turn it over to Eric Williams, who will go over part 5.
Thank you, Juanita. Good afternoon. My name is Eric Williams, the Hub Coordinator for the Texas Lottery Commission. I will be covering a very crucial element of your proposal, the Hub Subcontracting Plan, or HSP. If you are not the individual responsible for preparing the HSP, please pass this information to them and recommend they watch the video of this pre-proposal conference, which will be posted on the agency website. The Hub Subcontracting Plan is used to identify both Hub and non-Hub subcontractors that will be utilized under the contract award. All proposers, Hub and non-Hub, submitting a response to this RFP are required to submit an HSP. No one is exempt. As Juanita previously mentioned, the HSP is a pass-fail element of this RFP. No evaluation points are given for the HSP, and proposers must submit an HSP with their proposal, regardless of their subcontracting intentions. Any proposal received not including an HSP will be rejected, and the technical portion will not be evaluated. So it's important to submit a completed HSP with your proposal. Also, during the reviewing process, if it is determined that your submitted HSP has failed, your proposal will be disqualified and will not be evaluated. The HSP process is governed by a rule established by the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts. Per Section 5.1 of the RFP, you are responsible for reviewing this rule. The definition of a subcontractor is very broad and applies to any third-party vendor used to fulfill any portion of the contract. Our definition of a subcontractor is a person who contracts with a successful proposer to work, to supply commodities, or contribute toward completing work for the Texas Lottery Commission. In other words, if the successful proposer who is awarded this contract is paying anyone who is not an employee to provide goods and or services, they are very likely subcontracting under this definition. These individuals would receive a 1099, unlike your employees who receive a W-2. Self-performance. A proposer who indicates that their company will be subcontracting, a proposer who indicates that their company will not be subcontracting any portion of the contract will be fulfilling the entire contract with their own resources, including its own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, will be self-performing. Keep in mind that a pre-existing subcontracting relationship is considered subcontracting, in which case you cannot claim self-performance. A pre-existing subcontracting relationship is a business affiliation your company has with a third-party vendor who is currently supplying your company with goods and/or services and will continue to supply those goods and/or services to assist you in the performance of this contract. If you determine that your company is capable of fulfilling the entire contract with your own equipment, supplies, materials, and/or employees, please check the appropriate box in Section 2, the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions of the HSP form. Complete Section 3, the Self-Performing Justification, by providing a thorough explanation of how your company will perform the entire contract with its own employees, supplies, materials, and/or equipment as it relates to Part 6 of the RFP, which is the scope of services. Complete Section 4 of the HSP form, which is the affirmation, prior to submitting your HSP with your proposal. If you are not self-performing, you will need to proceed with the good faith effort of the HSP. We've identified potential subcontracting opportunities in Section 5.5.1 of the RFP. These areas may or may not be subcontracted depending on the proposer's existing resources, employees, and business model. You are not limited to the list in the RFP. However, if you intend to subcontract any portion of the contract and it's not listed, you are responsible for identifying it in your HSP submission. We have included in the RFP a list of hub vendors by CMBL class and commodity description to assist you in finding potential hub vendors. The Lottery Commission does not endorse, recommend, or attest to the capabilities of the company or individual listed within the RFP or on the CMBL Hub Search Directory. The good faith effort methods are for those proposers who intend to subcontract any portion of the contract. The goal of this good faith effort is to actively involve hubs in the Texas procurement process and ensure they receive a fair share of state business. Please check the appropriate boxes in Section 2, the Respondent Subcontracting Intentions of the HSP form, and perform one of the 3 good faith effort methods. The optional quick checklist will assist you in determining which of the 3 methods you should use. Good faith effort method A has 2 options. Method A, option 1. This option is for the proposer who will use only Texas certified hubs for all subcontracting opportunities listed in Section 2B, the Respondent Subcontracting Intention on the HSP forms. If you use this method, please verify online that the hub vendor is still an active hub listed on the CMBL. Method A, option 2, meeting the specified hub contract goal. This option is for the proposer who will use a combination of non-hubs and Texas certified hubs. However, to meet the specified hub contract goal of 23.7%, the proposer can only count those hubs which they have contracted with for 5 years or less. If you're going to subcontract and cannot claim method A1 or A2, then you must submit your HSP using method B, which is the good faith effort outreach. And this is done by notifying at least 3 Texas certified hubs per subcontracting opportunity, providing these hubs with at least 7 working days, excluding the day the solicitation was emailed or mailed or faxed to the hub vendors, weekends, holidays, and any other day the executive director of the Texas Lottery Commission has closed the agency. providing scope of work for hubs to determine whether they are interested, providing a location where the specifications are located, i.e. a link to the posting on the ESBD or a physical location, information regarding insurance and bonding requirements if applicable, and in addition, notifying a minimum of 2 minority women trade organization or business development centers, providing the same information above, as well as the same time frame for response. A mentor may utilize a protege from a state agency sponsored mentor protege agreement for the subcontracting if the protege is able to provide services. The mentor-protege relationship may be utilized in lieu of additional solicitations to hubs. Proposers using this method must perform outreach, even for areas where a proposer has a pre-existing or exclusive subcontracting relationship that will be used in performance of this contract. Our evaluation process for proposals received on or before the deadline for proposers is to review and evaluate the HSP and all supporting documentation to determine if the HSP has passed or failed. During our review, we may request clarification of information in your submittal. Again, there are no evaluation points assigned to the HSP. It is strictly pass or fail. If it is determined that your HSP has failed, the technical portion of your proposal will not be evaluated. Following the award of the contract, any proposed changes to the HSP must be submitted for review and approval by the agency. A written change approval form will be provided by the Lottery Commission. Subcontracting without prior authorization is a breach of contract. Monthly subcontracting expenditure reports are required as a condition of payment. Also, the successful proposer must provide a written notice to each subcontractor informing them of their selection. A copy of this notice must be provided to the Texas Lottery Commission no later than 10 working days after the contract award as stated in section 5.6.1 of the RFP. The notice must specify at a minimum the contracting agency's name and its point of contact for the contract, the contract award number, the subcontracting opportunity to be performed, the appropriate dollar value of the subcontracting opportunity, and the expected percentage of the total contract that the subcontracting opportunity represents. To assist you with the HSP, the Texas Lottery Commission provides the following resources and assistance. All vendors are strongly encouraged to take advantage of all the resources. This pre-proposal conference video will be posted on the agency website. A copy of the TLC's pre-bid proposal conference booklet regarding HSP requirements is available on the agency's website. A HSP quick checklist is included in the RFP. Proposers have the opportunity to submit written HSP questions up until the date of your proposal submission. However, we suggest you submit questions early to allow yourself the necessary time to cure any deficiencies with your plan. You are encouraged to start working on your plan right away to give yourself plenty of time. The HSP Q&A is posted on the agency website and on the ESBD, which will be a rolling document. So please be sure to check the date posted. We will review drafts of your HSP to identify deficiencies and provide feedback. However, we will not state whether your draft has passed or failed. We will provide one-on-one workshops upon request. These may be conducted via Zoom, Teams, or telephone conference call. The purpose of the workshops is to discuss the hub subcontracting requirements, answer questions specific to conducting the good faith effort and completing the HSP forms. This process will allow you the opportunity to submit your HSP forms for review by the Texas Lottery Commission prior to the proposal deadline. However, this process does not guarantee that the HSP submitted with the proposal will pass. It is the proposal's responsibility to understand the requirements of the HSP and to perform all the required steps prior to submitting the HSP. The last date to review any draft HSPs for deficiencies in one-on-one workshops is listed in the RFP. Per section 2.1 of the RFP, please forward all questions or requests to Juanita. Again, we strongly encourage you to take full advantage of all the available resources to assist you with your HSP submission. Once you submit your HSP with a proposal, there is no opportunity to cure. Please consult the schedule of events and make sure that you know which dates are crucial in terms of preparing and submitting the HSP. In closing, I'll remind you again, if you're not the person who is responsible for completing the HSP, please pass this information to them, as well as let them know that today's pre-proposal conference will be available for view on the agency website. Please submit questions regarding the HSP after this conference in writing, and they will be answered and posted on the agency website and the ESBD. HSP questions can be submitted up until the deadline for proposals. Again, this is listed in the RFP. Tammy, are there any questions to part 5 of the RFP?
Eric, there are no questions for part 5.
Thank you, Tammy. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Juanita. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. For Part 6, Scope of Services, Part 6 requires a section-by-section response. I will not be going into detail on this section. This is your opportunity to tell us how you will perform the services described in each section. It's not enough to say you can do it. Tell us how you will do it. Provide examples of techniques that you've used for success. Proposers need to demonstrate their abilities to do the work requested. Tammy, are there any questions on Part 6?
Juanita, there are no questions on part 6.
Okay. We are towards the end of our conference. Please submit any questions in the Q&A feature, or you can submit questions in accordance with the scheduled events. Here are some final reminders. All scope of service questions must be submitted in writing via email to me by the deadline in the scheduled events. Scope of service questions that are not submitted in writing by the time and date is specified will not be answered. If you have a question on the RFP process, you can contact me and I might be able to respond. Generally, this is the case for all sections except for Part 6, but don't hesitate to ask. Make a note of all dates in the scheduled events. Proposers are responsible for checking the ESPD and the TLC's website for any and all notices, amendments, and Q&As regarding this RFP. We will not directly email these to you. Prior to submission of your proposal, please review the entire RFP carefully to ensure that you submit all required information and or documentation. The pre-proposal conference video and sign-in sheet will be on the ESPD and the TLC's website prior to the end of the next business day. Tammy, are there any final questions before we go?
Juanita, there are no questions. Thank you.
Okay. This concludes our conference. Thanks again for your attendance and have a good day.